GMNA uses artificial intelligence for generated speech, visuals, and production. AI-generated content may contain errors. Please verify important information before making decisions or taking action.
Here are our top stories.
Westmount will keep weekly trash pickup through October despite Montreal's shift to a bi-weekly schedule, maintaining service for residents while the city transitions. Simon Fortier has the full story.
Westmount residents will still see their trash trucks rolling by every Tuesday and Friday, keeping the weekly pickup rhythm through the end of October. The schedule holds steady even as the surrounding city of Montreal prepares to shift its curbside service to a bi-weekly cadence later this year. Municipal officials say the decision lets Westmount maintain consistency for households and businesses while the larger city tests the new system. The change in Montreal will see garbage collected every other week starting in November, but Westmount's council voted to keep the current frequency for at least the next 2 months. The move aims to avoid confusion during the transition period. Simon Fortier, GMNA News, Westmount.
Quebec health officials will confirm a second cat in the city testing positive for the raccoon strain of rabies, marking a new case after the earlier discovery earlier this week. The agency says 3 residents who may have been scratched or bitten will receive emergency post-exposure prophylaxis today. Officials warn that raccoon-associated rabies has prompted increased surveillance of pets, and any animal showing abnormal behavior is being tested. Health workers will advise owners to keep cats indoors and avoid contact with wildlife until the investigation is complete. The 3 patients, identified as adults who handled the animal, will be monitored for symptoms and complete the full vaccine series. Authorities will continue to trace any additional exposures and urge the public to report suspicious animal activity to the health department promptly today.
Annie Broccoli, the beloved children's music personality, received a special Coup de Coeur award during the 2026 Just Pour Rire Festival. Organizers presented the honor on stage in the heart of the city, recognizing her impact on young audiences across the province. The award is part of the festival's laureate list announced for events taking place throughout the island and the wider Quebec region. Festival officials highlighted Broccoli's ability to blend humor and melody, noting that her songs have become staples in family gatherings and school classrooms. Attendees applauded as the singer performed a brief medley of her most popular tunes, reminding everyone why she remains a fixture in the province's cultural landscape. The ceremony underscores the festival's commitment to celebrating a diverse range of artistic contributions beyond traditional comedy.
RCMP arrested a 51-year-old Montreal man accused of making death threats against Prime Minister Mark Carney. The alleged crime falls under federal law. Camille Dowsett has the full story.
Police say a 51-year-old Montreal resident was taken into custody on August 10th after investigators linked him to a series of threatening messages aimed at Prime Minister Mark Carney. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police disclosed that the man allegedly communicated explicit death threats, prompting a swift arrest under Canada's federal intimidation statutes. Officers executed the takedown in a downtown neighborhood, seizing the suspect's phone and computer equipment as part of the ongoing inquiry. Prosecutors will now pursue charges that carry severe penalties for anyone found guilty of endangering the life of the nation's leader. The case adds to a growing list of high-profile security concerns surrounding political figures. Authorities remain vigilant, reviewing any additional messages that could be tied to the investigation. Camille Dowsett, GMNA News, Montreal.
Protesters gathered this morning at Gerry Park, voicing opposition to Tennis Canada's proposal to completely overhaul the site's facilities, including the IGA Stadium. Demonstrators, many carrying signs, argue the plan would fundamentally change a neighborhood landmark without sufficient community consultation. Tennis Canada maintains the redevelopment is essential to meet the rising standards of the professional tour and to address the stadium's aging infrastructure. The organization says the upgrades will bring the venue in line with international expectations and preserve its role on the ATP and WTA calendars. The protest remains underway, with participants urging officials to explore alternative solutions that protect local access and heritage. Police presence is reported near the park entrance, and traffic on nearby avenues has been redirected as the demonstration continues. The rally is taking place in the Plateau Montreal borough, near the park's main entrance. City officials have not yet responded publicly to the demands.
Later, we'll hear how a BC family is turning to local researchers for help with their son's rare disease. We will be right back.
Every day, important stories happen across the city before any news crew arrives. Sometimes the very first person at the story is you. When you witness something newsworthy, open the GMNA Citizen Reporter app and start your report. The app guides you through every step while your report is delivered directly to the GMNA newsroom. Every submission is reviewed by our editorial team, and approved reports may be featured on GMNA. Get the GMNA Citizen Reporter app today at my.gmna.ca. Your city, your news. Welcome back. British Columbia parents have embarked on a cross-country journey to meet a team of Montreal researchers working on an experimental therapy for their 3-year-old son's rare genetic disorder. The family arrived in the city this morning, joining scientists at a university laboratory that has identified a promising molecular target. Researchers say the trial is still in early stages, but the approach could address the underlying mutation that afflicts only a handful of patients worldwide. While the treatment remains experimental, the family hopes the collaboration will accelerate access to a potential cure. The effort underscores how specialist teams across Canada are pooling expertise to tackle diseases that affect very small patient populations. The project continues as clinicians monitor the child's response and refine the protocol. They plan to stay for several weeks to assess progress.
The Quebec coroner is urging the province's transport ministry to act on safety upgrades for Highway 50 after a fatal head-on collision last year highlighted ongoing concerns. Simon Fortier has the full story.
Late last year, a head-on collision on Highway 50 left 2 people dead, reviving concerns that the route still lacks critical safety measures. The provincial coroner, who has repeatedly warned about the highway's hazards, is now pressing the Transport Ministry to fast-track a suite of upgrades, including additional median barriers, improved lighting, and better signage at high-risk junctions. Officials say the crash exposed a gap in the existing protection system, and the coroner's latest appeal follows earlier calls for similar work that have yet to be fully implemented. The ministry has not yet detailed a timeline, but the pressure is mounting as families and local officials demand concrete action. Simon Fortier, GMNA News, St. Jerome.
Premier Christine Frechette announced today that Quebec may soon see a return of American wines on the shelves of its provincial liquor stores, provided the government's stipulated conditions are satisfied. The province has long maintained strict control over which vintages enter its retail network, favoring domestic producers and limiting cross-border imports. Frechette said the proposal is intended to broaden consumer choice while ensuring that quality standards and pricing rules remain consistent with existing policy. She added that any amendment to the current list would be subject to a thorough review by the Société des Alcools du Québec, the agency that oversees distribution. The move comes amid ongoing discussions about trade balance and market access, and officials expect a formal decision to be presented later this year after stakeholder consultations officially.
Quebec parties have begun rolling out pre-campaign advertisements today, signaling the start of a new messaging phase ahead of the provincial election. The Coalition Avenir Quebec aired spots focused on economic growth, job creation, and fiscal stability, positioning the government's record as a benchmark for future progress. The Parti Québécois released its own campaign clips, emphasizing a return to core sovereigntist values while pledging to win back voters who have drifted toward the governing side. Independent candidate Victor Henriquez entered the media arena with a brief that highlights his community-focused platform and calls for transparent governance. By launching these messages before the official campaign period, each group aims to shape voter perception early, test themes, and gauge public reaction as the election calendar tightens. Analysts note that early advertising can influence fundraising trajectories and force parties to refine their policy outlines before the formal nomination window opens.
An apple grower in Quebec has deployed an anti-hail cannon to shield orchards from freezing hail, a technology originating in Europe and now produced in New Zealand and Germany. Simon Fortier has the full story.
An apple grower in the province of Quebec has rolled out an anti-hail cannon across his orchard, firing bursts aimed at disrupting hail formation as storms move in. The deployment began on August 10, 2026, after meteorologists warned of a hail-prone system moving through the region. The device, originally engineered in Europe and now also manufactured in New Zealand and Germany, creates shock waves that agitate the air and deter ice crystals from coalescing. Operators set the cannon to fire at regular intervals during the afternoon, hoping to shield the trees from the freezing pellets that can bruise fruit and reduce yields. The farmer says the system will be active throughout the season, starting this week, to keep the harvest from suffering damage. Simon Fortier, GMNA News, Quebec.
Now let's get a look at your night forecast with our weather team.
A swaying southwest jet and slipping pressure are priming Montreal for a late-night rain burst. On this date, the thermometer once hit 34.4 degrees in 2025, a blistering peak that rode the tail end of an unprecedented heat wave across the province. The coldest reading was 14.2 degrees in 2019, recorded during a sudden Arctic dip that caught the city off guard. Normal highs hover around 26 degrees and lows near 16, so today's 28-degree peak feels modest, while the overnight low of 18 sits just above the climatological average. Zooming in on the live radar, a band of moderate echoes stretches from the southwest, hugging the St. Lawrence corridor. The cells intensified around 9 p.m. and are marching northeast at a brisk pace, driven by the southwest jet that's pushing them toward downtown. Expect the heaviest rain to tap Montreal between 9 and 10, then taper off as the line slides into the countryside by 11. At 11 p.m., the sky remains overcast with a temperature of 20 degrees and humidity perched at 91%. A light southeast breeze whispers at 8 kilometers per hour, gusting to 22, while pressure is slipping lower, signaling an unsettled night ahead. The southwest jet overhead, clocking roughly 102 kilometers per hour, is channeling moisture aloft and will keep the atmosphere primed for brief showers. Although the UV index reads 4, the sun is already set, so the index is a legacy figure. No wind exceeds 25, but the lingering dampness feels oppressive. A severe thunderstorm watch blankets the island and surrounding suburbs, so stay alert for sudden gusts or lightning. With the radar clearing, we turn to the 5-day outlook. Tuesday opens with a clear sky and a high of 26 degrees, a comfortable dip from today's peak. Wednesday brings overcast layers and a 25% chance of rain, while temperatures ease to 24, keeping the night mild at 16. Thursday looks similar temperature-wise, but the rain probability jumps to 45%, indicating a lingering moisture plume riding the jet. Friday returns to clearer conditions, though a modest 20% rain chance hints at scattered showers. Highs settle at 21 and lows at 15. Saturday rounds the week with another clear stretch, high 23 and low 15, giving residents a brief respite before the next system approaches. The swing from modest warmth to scattered rain showcases the unsettled pattern driven by the shifting jet and low-pressure trough. And that's your weather. Remember, the wrap is also available as a podcast. Listen anytime on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Coming up, traffic updates. A look at what's on today, plus a quick recap of our sports and season highlights. We will be right back.
Every day, important stories happen across the city before any news crew arrives. Sometimes the very first person at the story is you. When you witness something newsworthy, open the GMNA Citizen Reporter app and start your report. The app guides you through every step while your report is delivered directly to the GMNA newsroom. Every submission is reviewed by our editorial team, and approved reports may be featured on GMNA. Get the GMNA Citizen Reporter app today at my.gmna.ca. Your city, your news.
And now here's Jason with sports.
Montreal sports making noise on two fronts, soccer and hockey. CF Montreal just changed the conversation in MLS. The club has signed Chilean icon Alexis Sanchez, a player who has starred at Barcelona, Arsenal, and Inter Milan. This is a marquee acquisition that instantly raises Montreal's profile league-wide and gives fans a genuine world-class name to rally around. Carey Price believes this Canadiens group is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, and he points specifically to the young goaltending depth as the foundation. When the franchise's greatest netminder stamps his approval on your crease situation, that carries weight. The Habs heading into 2026-27 with real belief behind them. The Canadiens' prospect pipeline keeps getting deeper. Goaltender Yevgeny Volokin enters the organization's top 25 under 25 after a dominant VHL season, 1.51 goals against average, a .948 save percentage, and 12 combined shutouts in the regular season and playoffs. That goaltending depth is suddenly a legitimate organizational strength.
Welcome back. The Quebec Liberal Party has named former business executive and wine entrepreneur Sébastien Deust as its candidate for the Blainville riding, positioning him for the upcoming provincial election. Antin Prévost has the full story.
On a crisp morning in Blainville, the Quebec Liberal Party gathered local supporters to unveil its next candidate for the riding. Party officials stepped forward to introduce Sébastien Deust, a former business executive who later launched his own wine venture. Deust addressed the crowd, saying he plans to bring his entrepreneurial experience to the political arena and focus on jobs and community growth. The party's press release confirmed his candidacy, marking the first time the former wine entrepreneur will run under the Liberal banner in this suburban constituency. Party members applauded as banners bearing the Liberal logo fluttered behind the stage, signaling the start of the campaign season. Local residents listened intently, hoping his business background will translate into tangible results for the area. Antin Prévost, GMNA News, Blainville.
Port of Quebec is taking charge of the environmental assessment for a proposed container terminal after the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada stepped back. The study will shape the project's future. Elise Marchand has the full story.
Port officials announced today they will spearhead the environmental assessment for a proposed container terminal after the Federal Impact Assessment Agency stepped back from the review. The study will examine potential effects on water quality, wildlife habitats, and local traffic as the project moves toward planning. Port engineers say they'll coordinate with provincial regulators and Indigenous groups to meet national standards. The shift places the responsibility squarely on the port's shoulders, aiming to keep the timeline on track while ensuring compliance. Stakeholders expect the assessment to start within weeks, with a full report due before construction bids are released later this year. That's the latest from the waterfront. Elise Marchand, GMNA News, Quebec City.
Thank you, Montreal, for joining us on The Wrap. Tonight's look at the Westmount decision to keep weekly trash pickup sparked lively conversation, and we appreciate your input. I'm Peter Miller, and I'll be back tomorrow with more of the city's stories. Stay safe and see you then.